Bienvenue à La santé au-delà des mots, un rendez-vous avec des gens passionnés du réseau de la santé. Votre hôte, Jean-Pierre Gagné, lui-même médecin, vous fera partager sa passion pour le domaine et vous fera découvrir une foule d'invités et d'acteurs clés du réseau. Voici votre hôte, le Dr Jean-Pierre Gagné. Bonne écoute!
Alors bonjour, mon nom est Jean-Pierre Gagné. Bienvenue à cet épisode très spécial du balado La santé au-delà des mots. Nous sommes samedi le 12 mars 2022. Le conflit ukrainien en est à sa 3e semaine et ce matin, si tout va bien, je devrais pouvoir m'entretenir avec le Dr Honcharenko, qui est chirurgien pédiatrique à Kyiv, en Ukraine. Okay, we are online. So, how do you feel this morning?
Yeah, I'm fine.
We heard this morning on the news that there were bombings near the city last night.
Well, bombings are happening every day here, you know.
Okay.
It's a war.
Okay. So thank you very much for taking some time with me this morning. For a matter of security, we will not disclose your whereabouts or any private details regarding your situation. That's fine?
Okay.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about you, how old you are, where were you born, and a little bit about your medical training, since you are a surgeon in Kyiv?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a pediatric surgeon from Kyiv, Ukraine. I'm 29. I was born in Ulyanovsk. It's a city in Russia. So I graduated from the National Medical University in 2015.
Okay.
After that, I had 3 years of surgical residency. Do you hear me well?
I'm sorry?
Do you hear me well?
Oh, yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, that's good. So in 2020, I had my thoracic surgery training, and currently I'm a pediatric and thoracic surgeon in my hospital.
Okay. And why did you choose this profession, surgery or medicine, to begin with?
Well, I choose medicine because of its importance. Well, every job is important, I think,
Yes.
but I couldn't imagine myself in any other position. I chose surgery because it's an efficient treatment modality.
Okay.
And later, during my training, I was fascinated how ingeniously could human mind work to solve any kind of clinical problems.
Okay.
I believe that problem solving and clinical thinking are invaluable skills, you know.
Okay.
Also, experience gaining is an encouraging process to me.
Okay.
Well, all in all, medicine is a dynamic field. I love that.
And you thought it was easier to solve problems with surgery than medicine, maybe? Or a more direct solution?
Well, yes, I think yes, but it depends, you know.
Okay.
When you deal with some, complicated cases, or when you have some complications, or when you deal with patients who were treated before, who had sophisticated treatment, but they still have a problem, and you have to deal with that problem, which is, well, in fact, residual problem, and sometimes you don't have a lot of resources left. In tracheal surgery, for example, when you have tracheal stenosis, or in esophageal surgery when you have esophageal stenosis, and well, every other options were already tried. So I don't deal with such complicated stuff only by myself. We always have a team of my colleagues and me. Well, mostly I'm studying from my colleagues who are more experienced in surgery role. But Well, yeah. It's not so. Not always so straightforward, even in surgery.
Okay.
Well, I understand. Yes, that for example, in some in some other fields of medicine, yeah, I understand. It could look like more complicated way to treat something. Yeah, but I think that surgery is not always so straightforward. It's straightforward in some simple cases, like appendicitis.
Yes, yes.
You have abdominal pain, you have all the signs and symptoms, and so you make a diagnosis, and you go to the OR, right?
Yeah.
And well, that's it. You have appendicitis, you've done it, and and that's fine, that's good. But not all the surgical cases are so easy.
Yeah.
Even sometimes we even contact our colleagues from European Union and from Canada and from the United States to consult,
Okay.
to get maybe some advice. And I think it's not always so straightforward.
Okay. Have you been to Canada before?
No.
Okay, because I got to you through a contact in Montreal from the Ukrainian National Federation. So how did you get to know this colleague physician in Montreal, Artem?
Artem and Nadia. I first met them, Artem and Nadia, in 2016.
Okay.
They came with Professor Dan Deckelbaum and Professor Jeremy Grushka. They're both from as far as I know, it's the same university hospital. It's in Montreal. Yeah, it seems like it's in Montreal to Kyiv. Well, so they came to Kyiv to introduce the ATLS, Advanced Trauma Life.
I see.
ATLS course, and we became friends.
Okay.
And and they do support us in these tough times. I contacted Professor Dan Deckelbaum maybe like 2 weeks ago, and he gave us like a full support. So he gave us his contacts. He told us that we can call him anytime. It's not a problem. Well, so that's fine. We really feel and we appreciate support from our foreign colleagues. It's a very good thing.
Yeah. You were born in 1992, so after the fall of the Russian Empire. So how was it to grow up in Ukraine in the 90s? And
it was childhood, and it always like all the memories from childhood are bright and happy, and everything is fine. It was fine actually, because USSR was not like it was not like an evil empire or something like that. It was fine. People actually were happy. A lot of people were happy. Well, there were a lot of issues. Yes, that's true. It was complicated country in terms of politics and in terms of ethnicity and national issues and other stuff. Yes, that's true. But actually, a lot of things were okay. It was not so difficult in the 90s. My parents were young. They both worked, and I had a normal childhood. I had school. Everything. I remember the country. It was like gradually developing from year to year, and this newly established democracy in Ukraine and our government, which constantly changed, and all the presidential elections and governmental elections. I remember all the stuff, and it was when you look back to that time to the end of the 90s, you see it's and comparing to now, you see that the country, I mean Ukraine, developed a lot in a democratic sense, actually in any sense, because people changed, our country changed. If you compare my country to other countries from the post-USSR space, if you compare Ukraine to Belarus or to Russian Federation or to other countries, you'll see that during these times we had elections, we had different presidents, we had different governments, we had different political parties, we had different directions. all the time, and it was constantly changing because we have real democracy in Ukraine. People here are really voting, even in the tough times. For example, like in 2014, when the war started, even before when we had our revolutions, even at that time, we always had democracy. And this democracy is always developing. So people here are fighting for this. And this war that's happening today, actually, it's like a fight between a democratic world, which Ukraine represents, and between the monopolar countries like Russia and Belarus, which don't have a choice, which don't have elections, doesn't have elections, which it's totally opposite countries.
I see.
You see, because here in Ukraine, people have choice. We always have choice, and people here always fought for the choice.
I see.
In other countries, it's not like this. So sometimes it sounds, it may sound, you should come to see it, because actually that political process that happened in Ukraine, some people don't believe that. Because of different issues. But if you come and see, you'll understand it.
What was your life like just maybe 3 weeks ago, just before the Russian invasion?
I had a normal, happy life, I visited my friends in Munich, Germany in December 2021.
Okay.
Well, just like 2 months ago. And in February, I visited my relatives in Manchester, England. We spent like a week together, and I was absolutely happy. Everything was absolutely fine. Because in my country, in Ukraine, we had everything fine before the war. That propaganda that Russians tell on their television and that they're spread in the media that Ukraine was under Nazis, that Ukraine had problems or any stuff, it's not true. Yeah. Ukraine is a peaceful country where everything was absolutely all right, totally all right before Russians invaded. We had everything fine, absolutely fine. That's like a main point. And when Russian media says that they came here, they invaded Ukraine to bring peace here or to liberate us, well, that's a sort of nonsense. That makes absolutely no sense, because we had everything fine before they came. Now we have destruction. Now we have a lot of problems, and that's just because they invaded here. So they bring no peace, no liberation. Actual liberation from what? Because we had no problems. We have a democratically chosen government. We have a democratically chosen president. We have we have some political issues in Ukraine. Well, that's right, because we have democracy. So different political parties and groups, they're constantly fighting between each other. Well, but that's a normal process, because some people always want people don't have to share same ideas and same directions for anything. That's clear. So that's fine. But before the war, everything was fine in Ukraine.
And where does this come from, the idea that Russia came to denazify Ukraine?
That's a propaganda. That's Russian propaganda. That's clearly Russian propaganda. There's no Nazi in Ukraine. No Nazi. Never.
Yeah. Because
Ukraine is a peaceful, very, it's a good term in politics. I'm not sure how's it in English. How's it better to say? Liberal. Yeah, liberal. Ukraine is very liberal country.
Yes.
It means it's liberal.
It's a free country.
Every field. Yeah. It's very free country. Ukraine in every question is very, very free to choose. When you make business, when you start your own, for example, when you go for, when you choose a job, when you start to work, anything you do in Ukraine is very liberal country. It has a lot of options always. No one in Ukraine is going to stop you if you want to make, for example, Actually anything. If you're going to make a business, if you're going to build a house, if you're going to make a family, if you're going to start a research or anything like that, Ukraine is very, very open to anything good, actually. But there were never any Nazis here in Ukraine. Never.
It just seems like a nonsense to
it's
bring that
absolutely
up
nonsense because there. Yes, because it's Russian propaganda. Because they had to explain to their own people why do they started this war. But this war has no reason except greed, except like a will for power, for I don't know. There's actually no real reason for this war, because previous wars that Russia started, like war in Afghanistan, it had no reason to. Well, actually, any war doesn't have any real reason, except like any. It's difficult to explain. I don't know what's the reason for a war in the world, because I see when people build and grow and develop, and it's fine and it's working. All the civilized world is like developing in this way, and that's fine. There's no need to have conflicts and war and other stuff. I see like no real reason for any conflict in the world. This war has absolutely no reason, because we had no issues like inside our country. Everything was fine. There's no Nazis here. There's no like oppression. I mean, for people here, people in Ukraine. Well, there are different nationalities in Ukraine living, like different people from all over the world, and everything's fine.
Some people think that it might be in Putin's mind that he wants to be remembered as a great conqueror or a great emperor. You think that's the case? He's coming to the end of his political life, maybe, or?
Well, no one knows. No one knows what's going to happen, and no one really understands what was his like motive to do this. Because, well, he explained before the war started. He explained to the world that he doesn't want to see NATO in Ukraine, because it's close to the Russian borders, because it's like because he says that it's dangerous for Russia, and he says that it's like it's sort of a political and military escalation in the world. Well, but the thing is that Ukraine is a peaceful country. NATO, for us, for Ukrainians, is a guarantee of our safety, because we are not safe. Putin started this war in 2014, 8 years ago, when he invaded our eastern borders in Lugansk and Donetsk. It's a long conflict. It started in 2014, so it's going like for 8 years.
Artem, our colleague in Montreal, was making a good point, saying that if you want to keep NATO far away from Russia, why would you push your border all the way to Poland, for example? Because if Russia conquers Ukraine, then you are really like just by NATO's side. What do you think of that?
Well, yes, that's actually, I agree with it. That makes no sense, actually.
Yeah.
Because they're moving like forward to the west. Well, I don't know what are they going to do, actually, because I don't believe that they can conquer Ukraine. It's almost impossible. Well, but
why is that?
How? Because we have strong Ukrainian armed forces.
Yeah.
Strong Ukrainian armed forces, and we have strong people here, and all our people, or our country is defending every day, and they can't conquer us, because it's almost impossible. I don't believe in that. And even if they conquer, for example, some part of Ukraine, or if they shut down our government, or if they make any sort of worst case scenario, I don't want to even imagine what they're going to do. But if anything like this happens, well, anyway, they can't hold this country. They can't hold it under their control because Ukrainians are not Russians. Ukrainians are different people. We have democracy. We have another like a mind view, another mindset. We have absolutely another historical way because Ukraine is an old country. Yes, during our history, we had a lot of tough times. Yes, that's true. And Ukraine, like independent country, well, is a young country. Yes, that's true. But anyway, it's absolutely they're absolutely different people. Absolutely different people. And I don't know how are they going to hold this country, conquer and hold our country. I think it's impossible.
How do you see this war ending?
I see that Ukraine will win.
And Russia.
That's the only option.
Okay. There's no other possibility.
Well, what happens to Russia? I don't know what's going to happen to Russia because I see that people in Russia, well, I believe that they understand that it's wrong. I believe that many people in Russia understand that it's wrong. It's a wrong way. It's not. It's an absolutely wrong way. Because it looks really very similar to the 1939 when Nazi Germany started a Second World War without any real reason for that. Because there was no real reason for that. They had a country, they were developing. Yes, Nazis are criminals, actually. They wanted this war. They wanted to expand, to conquer like all the Europe and USSR and maybe other countries. I don't know what they wanted, but there was no real reason for that because it just. I don't see any real reason for any war. Actually, I don't understand. I don't understand it. I think it's totally wrong from the beginning.
Before we go on with the discussion on war, you've been in practice just for a few years, I believe, just 3 or 4 years. Is that right?
No, we include our residency too.
Okay.
Residence is a sort of practice.
Okay, I see. Okay, in your country, you include residency as your practice. So what would be your most beautiful souvenir as a physician? A case or...
you mean a case? Okay. Well, let me think.
Because you treat only children, right? Do you treat adults as well, or?
Well, yeah, my hospital is pediatric.
Okay.
But nowadays we have adult patients too.
I see.
Because of trauma, because of wartime.
Yeah.
Well, so I can tell you. Yeah, we had a patient who came to our hospital when he was around 1 or 2 months old.
Okay.
Yeah, he was born with esophageal atresia.
Yeah.
With distal tracheoesophageal fistula. It's like a most common type. On the first day of his life, he was operated in another hospital in another region, and tracheotomy, fistula ligation, and esophageal anastomosis were performed. And a few days later, he had anastomotic leakage, which was suspected clinically, I think, and confirmed by X-ray esophagogram.
Yeah.
So he was reoperated twice without success. And he ended up in our hospital with esophagostomy, and gastrostomy.
Okay.
Yep. So no esophagus left. Considering his condition, his only option was a colon interposition procedure at the age of 1 year or maybe later, because mostly we do colon interposition when a child gets some weight, at least 10 kilos, at least.
Okay.
And because it's associated with less complications. But my colleague, Professor Eugene Rudenko, he's a professor in my hospital, made a decision to save this child's own esophagus. So we did 5 stages of extratheratic elongation of the proximal esophageal segment. It's called Kimura procedure. Then we did retrocotomy and 2 stages of Fokker procedure, to elongate the distal esophagus.
Okay.
After that, we successfully made an esophageal anastomosis. And I remember the day when I did an X-ray esophagogram of the child.
Yeah.
And we seen that esophageal anastomosis healed uneventfully.
Okay.
And there was no leakage and everything was fine. So we showed that X-ray to the child's mother and she started crying. It was sincere. Because, she spent almost, at that time, she spent almost 1.5 years in total with her child. Yeah, in different hospitals. Yeah, and waiting for this day to come, when he will finally have his own, esophagus. Yeah.
Difficult case.
Yeah, difficult case, because in last year, few years we in our hospital we're trying to save any esophagus that we could save.
Okay. Could you deal with such a case nowadays if you have a sick kid like that in the actual situation, or
in that situation? No. So no. That's not even necessary.
Okay.
Because you see, it's a complicated thing. When you do such staged, when you do operation procedure in many stages, you have you need ICU, intensive care unit, maybe for a long time. You need ventilation support, maybe for a long time. You need a lot of complicated and sophisticated stuff, like CTs, MRIs, X-rays, ultrasound. You will need a lot of, it's very, very complicated. And there's no need to do that now. I think I believe that we will win, that Ukraine will win. And after that, we'll come back to doing this. Because I think that it's a very developed treatment as for me.
Yeah.
And as far as I know in the world, it's I believe that it's fine. It goes totally strict to the modern recommendations, and that's it.
But what I wanted to know is how do you go around treating normal patient nowadays, appendicitis, anything normal surgical situations? Can you treat those patients, or what kind of context do you have at the hospital?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, actually everything is under control now.
Okay.
Yeah? Mostly emergencies provided. Yeah. So from the beginning of the war, from the 24th of February, my hospital was reorganized in order to provide medical help in wartime conditions. Yeah.
Yep.
So the A&E department in our new hospital building was established. All of the medical staff and necessary equipment were moved there. Yeah. The bomb shelter was organized. The supply chain for medications, food, necessary goods, and other stuff were re-established. With significant help from volunteers and our international partners. But coming back to your question, appendicitis, it's an urgent surgical disease. Yeah, so it's treated just after the diagnosis is made, and it's treated like always. It's not a problem. It also applies to any other emergency. So
and what about other cases like cancer cases or semi-elective cases, cancer or?
It's complicated.
Okay.
Cancers in children, cancers in children are being treated in spite of the wartime.
Okay.
So we are treating it anyway.
Are you giving chemotherapy, the whole thing, or just like normal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but it changed a little bit because I don't treat children with cancers.
Okay.
But my colleagues, as far as I know, actually they do the best they could. Yes. Some children which needed to continue this sophisticated treatment were sent to other hospitals, some children were sent abroad. It was like an agreement between my country and other countries to help in this situation, because well, it's evident that the supply chain now is broken. Actually, I mean, for this such a sophisticated treatment, because children with hematological diseases, different types of cancer, and well, they need a lot. They need a lot of different things, and yes, it's a tough time for them now. Yes, that's true, but my colleagues are doing the best they could. So, well, they're working. It's not stopping. When they could continue to do it here in my hospital, they continue to do it. When they can't, they find better opportunities. They find better possibilities to provide the best they could.
Did you have to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic in the weeks leading up to the war, or it was pretty much under control?
It was under control, but it was a dramatic rise in the number of COVID-19 cases in Ukraine during the December and January. Well, as far as I know, many cases had mild course. All my family, including me, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends, a lot of our patients had COVID-19 in December and January, but there were no significant complications, and as far as I know, everyone's fine.
Okay. And now you have two situations at the same time. So you have do you still have COVID-19 patients coming to the hospital? I suppose no.
No.
They stay home.
My hospital doesn't. No, they don't stay home. My hospital doesn't normally work with COVID patients.
Okay.
I mean, occasionally we had patients with COVID, but mostly we transferred them to the specific COVID hospitals. Yeah. Okay. Now it's the same. Yeah. Now but now everything is changed. Everything actually except the war has faded now, and well, we have medicine. These people do have help. They're not left alone. So if they need treatment, they get the treatment, and everything's under control. Okay. But well, it's not like so. If before the war, we had COVID was a problem anywhere in the world. It was like a real problem, and a lot of people had it. A lot of people, and a lot of it's changed now. Because of the war, everything changed.
I see. So we're going to take a short break, Dr Honcharenko. I'm going to speak in French just a few seconds. On va prendre une courte pause et on revient avec Dr Honcharenko qui est chirurgien pédiatrique à Kyiv.
Le podcast La santé au-delà des mots est une présentation du groupe conseil Beauchamp, Beaulieu, Dessureau, Toupin de la financière Banque nationale Gestion de patrimoine. Comme nous croyons que la santé financière fait partie de la santé globale, nous sommes heureux de nous joindre au Dr Jean-Pierre Gagné pour vous souhaiter une bonne saison de la santé au-delà des mots.
Tu veux lancer ton propre podcast mais tu ne sais pas comment t'y prendre? Pas de problème. Mouton Marketing peut t'accompagner de la conception au lancement. Envoie ton idée de podcast à bonjour@gomouton.com, bonjour@gomouton.com. L'univers du podcast t'attend. Dr. Honcharenko, there was a bombing of a maternity hospital in Mariupol a few days ago. So in your mind, how can a single man order such an horrific act?
Well, to be honest, I know about that only from media. I guess like you do.
Yes.
Because Mariupol is it's in the east of Ukraine, and everything that I know about this act, about this situation, is only that I've got from media.
Okay.
Well, I think it's horrifying. It's unforgivable. Well, how can a single man order? Well, I have no idea. I have no reasonable explanation for this, because we know that it was a civil object. It's a maternity unit.
Mm-hmm.
But, for example, Russians say that it was military.
Facility.
It was a military object. Yes, it was a military object. That there were no. They say that it was like a base for Ukrainian natives. But how could it be? All the world have seen the photos from that maternity unit in Mariupol, and everyone has seen that there are women,
children,
mothers,
children,
and no Nazis and no soldiers. It was a civil, 100% civil object, no military. They bombed it. I think it's like I don't understand. It's unexplainable to me.
And what does that tell you about the Russian army and what they are ready to do? Well,
we Ukrainians already know everything since 2014.
Okay.
When this war started, so there a lot of things, a lot of cruel things they've done to us.
Mm-hmm. So you refer to 2014. Did you always have the feeling that this day was going to come when Russia would invade Ukraine, or?
Well, I think everyone was afraid of that. I think when it started in 2014, when they invaded Lugansk region and Donetsk region, our army defended, so our army stopped them at that borders. So they had occupied Crimea, and Lugansk, part of the Lugansk region and part of Donetsk region.
Mm-hmm.
But Ukraine stopped them. And during all this time, for 8 years, they had constantly bombing our territory. I mean Ukraine, our people, from from Lugansk, from Donetsk, and from Crimea.
Mm-hmm.
Constantly, all over that time, they were gaining information. They had they were preparing for this war for all this time, and we knew that. And people in Ukraine and my country has been preparing, because for these 8 years we it's difficult to explain, but Ukraine is much stronger than it was before.
Mm-hmm.
And when this war started on the 24th of February, Ukraine was more prepared to it than it was in 2014.
Okay. Are you scared yourself, or?
Well, actually, everyone should be. This is not a local war. This is a matter of existence, not only for Ukraine as a country, but for the entire modern civilized world.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see, regardless of the outcome of this war, the world as we know it will never be the same again. Both world wars were started in Europe. So what mechanisms were developed in the 77 years after the World War II to prevent the outbreak of the World War III?
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, many countries of the world are helping us in this war, both financially and with the supply of weapons. But why hasn't the sky over Ukraine been closed yet?
Mm-hmm.
NATO says that it will not close the sky above Ukraine to avoid an escalation of this conflict.
Yes.
It is understood that closing the sky will be considered as NATO's entry into this war with Russia, which in essence means the beginning of the Third World War.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the mechanism for preventing war? How to stop this war now? I think that history repeats itself over and over again, because when Adolf Hitler started the Second World War from Germany, the world was trying to stop him by diplomacy,
yes,
by different restrictions and other stuff. But we all know how it ended.
It was called
we all know about
the appeasement policy at the time.
Yes. And we all know what the price the whole world paid for this.
Mm.
And now I think that history is repeating, because when Russians, before this war started, when Russians were like accusing Ukraine in different crimes, like we are developing like nuclear weapon, or we are going to enter the NATO to attack Russia, or other nonsense like ideas. During that time, Europe and USA started some sanctions, and the diplomacy was working hard to stop Russians, but it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
We see that it didn't work, and we have the war now, and so it's like, the war is going on.
Yes.
That's like the main idea. So unfortunately, all these measures are not working.
As we look back over the last 20 years, it seems that maybe the West has been looking at the Russian president and hoping that he would stop at some point. And every time they gave him an inch, he took a foot, right?
Well, I think that, like relations between the European Union and Russia, well, it's not totally like, I can't totally understand all those things,
Mm-hmm.
because Ukraine is a peaceful country. When a peaceful country in the Europe is being attacked, cruelly attacked every day by bombing, by killing, by tanks and other heavy weapons, I think that whole world should help should react to stop this war.
Even if Russia is threatening the use of a nuclear weapon.
Well, in this case, like in this case, I have a question to you. So, does it mean that any country which has nuclear weapon has some sort of can do whatever they want?
Yes.
Only if they have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, but it seems.
For example,
I see what you mean.
Because the nuclear weapon itself doesn't give a right to start a war or to kill other people or to do such crimes.
But not too many countries. Not too many countries at the moment have a nuclear weapons and a president who seems to be out of his mind. Though they've been bombing the nuclear facility in Ukraine, which is totally crazy, no?
Yes, they're bombing. They were bombing Chernobyl nuclear plant and station and Zaporizhia.
Mm-hmm.
And the nuclear plant station Zaporizhia is one of the biggest, as far as I know, is one of the biggest in Europe. And yes, it's extremely dangerous because we had a Chernobyl catastrophe in 1986, and
mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine what's going to happen because that's extremely dangerous. It's dangerous for the whole world, not only for Ukraine, not only for Russia or some nearest countries. It's dangerous for the whole world because if ecological catastrophe happen,
mm-hmm.
it will. Well, everyone will be involved.
Mm. So you say that the West should be more aggressive. So all the financial pressure that is applied on Russia at the moment is not enough in your vision, or it's not acting quick enough?
Does it seem to you that it's working?
Mm. Well, maybe
the war seems to be continuing, and it seems to be escalating.
Yes. Maybe do you think this could bring it could not bring the fall of Putin, just those measures, in your mind?
Well, I'm not a politician. I don't know what's going to happen to Russia, but I think that measures that are all the measures that were applied now to stop Russia, well, I feel that they're not enough. Mm-hmm. We Ukrainians, we are constantly for 2 weeks asking to close the sky above Ukraine, because most of the damage, most of the victims are coming from direct bombing of Ukrainian cities by Russians.
Russian planes.
If NATO closes the sky above Ukraine, we'll have the possibility to win on our land. Because we can't control all that rockets and bombs that are coming from all over Russia and Belarus and from Crimea and, I don't know, other places. It's almost impossible.
You probably heard that Poland offered to give Ukraine planes in exchange for American planes, and President Biden refused also because he's afraid of escalation, as you said. So it's the same reasoning.
I've heard about that, but I don't think that it's right. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful to the people of Poland. I'm grateful to this country who offered this thing, and I think that it was the right idea. And I think that we need those planes, and we need to close the sky above Ukraine. It's extremely important, because most all the damage that's happening now, it's happening right from
the air,
the bombing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens in the coming days with that. Tell me, do you yourself carry a gun, or is that something?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No, I don't.
Do you plan to get one, or it's not necessary? Or?
Well, I don't plan to get one, because I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
My duty is to save human lives. Yeah. So I hope that I wouldn't have to use a gun for killing. Yeah. I hope that won't happen.
Have you treated injured civilians at this point?
Yes, we had.
What kind of injuries? Or blast injuries?
It's better. Well, it's better to not discuss this question.
That's fine. That's fine.
Question.
I understand. Tell me, is there like a military health system that works, or everything is done in the civil hospital system? All the treatment of injured patients. It's all in the civil hospitals?
Look, I'm an ordinary doctor. Yeah, I'm an ordinary Ukrainian doctor. So I can tell you only about a hospital where I'm working. Yeah. So my hospital is pediatric. Yeah. But we have some adult patients now.
Okay.
That's it. We have military hospitals. We have civil hospitals. But as far as I know, all of them are working for any sort of patients, for any type of patients, any type of trauma. So it doesn't matter if the patient, for example, comes from a battlefield, he comes to the civil hospital. Well, so he will be treated, and all the staff will do the best they could do.
I see.
So, it's there's not formal separation or any sort of that. Everyone is doing their best.
Could you, as a civil physician, join the military and become a military surgeon tomorrow, for instance, and change your practice completely? Is that possible?
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay, you haven't. Talk to me a little bit about President Zelensky and the kind of leader he's been for the last 2 weeks.
Well, our people, Ukrainians, are united now, confronting our enemy, So I think it's not the right time to discuss like our president.
Okay.
Well, I can only say that Ukrainian president is a courageous man.
Yes. Well, in the West, he comes out as a hero.
Well, he is.
Yes. That's a very courageous man.
That's true.
And if you could change just one thing with the click of a finger today on March 12, what would you do? End the war or close the sky?
Well, I'd like to stop this war at all.
Stop the
because, well, I'd like to. I wish this war never started.
Yeah.
Because it was a big mistake. It was a big mistake. We will never come back to the place where we started. We will never come back to where we were just before this day, because everything's going to change now. It's not so well, it's not so obvious now, because for example, for people who are distant from Ukraine, from Russia, for people who are Canada is quite a distant country from us, I do understand, your feelings and feelings of millions of people around the world who pray for Ukraine. But that I see that if this war continues, if this continues this way, or even if the worst case scenario happens, there will be no way back. There's actually no way back now. But I wish it never started. At least for now, I wish it stopped today. At least any day. But I wish it stopped, because we Ukrainians, we need peace. We never wanted war. We never attacked anyone. Never at all. We are a very peaceful country. We have our own country. We have our own language. We have our own history. We have our. Well, it's not only our. It's like very widespread religion. But anyway. We have our church, and we are very peaceful. We never had any sort of aggression. We never started anything here, because we only. I think our only fault in the eyes of Russia is our democracy. It's that we have freedom. It's that we had 2 revolutions in this time. You see, because we were fighting for our freedom. Russians are fighting too, but their government is oppressing them. They are holding them, and if you see from the media, from the news, that Russia has closed like Facebook,
exactly.
And all they're closing internet, they're closing all the media which are not controlled by the Russian government. So Russia nowadays is like. It's like a closed country. It's like a totalitarian country. Their government is controlling everything. They're controlling financial questions, financials questions. They're controlling people's minds. They're controlling media. People in Russia, they don't even have an access to other opinions and to other views. Because as far as I know, here in Ukraine, we can see Russian TV channels too. Well, and a lot of people in Ukraine have that possibility. We have both views. We can see the views from Russia, and we can see the view from Ukraine, our point of view. I can tell you that Russians on their official television have totally opposite view on all this, on the same situations that we have here. Totally opposite view. For example, we see that Ukrainians are defending, right? So this war was started by Russians. We Ukrainians were defending, yeah. But Russians, they say that Ukraine provoked Russia to start this war. That Ukrainians were going to launch missiles to Russian cities, to Belarus cities, and that was like like a trigger for them to start this war. But it's totally not true. Nothing like that never happened. Never Ukraine wanted to attack. How is it even possible? How could even anyone imagine that Ukraine, a little, not little, but anyway, like European country, is going to attack? A smaller European country, going to attack the biggest country in the world. with the biggest army, like 1 million people they have in Russia or something like that. How is it even possible? It's unimaginable. It's like beyond any human logic. And everything, all the information that Russians see on their television, that they read in the news, and all that information is mostly false. It's not real information. For example, something like 2 days ago, in Russian media, I've seen the news that they say that Ukrainians are going to use biological weapon against Russia. But it's not true. It's impossible. Ukraine never had biological weapon. We don't have it now. We don't even have it. How can we attack Russia with biological weapon? It's inhumane. It's impossible. We never even had an idea to do that. Because it's like it's something medieval. It's something very, very wrong. Because it's a war crime. It's a very, very wrong thing. We never even had an idea to do this. But they accuse Ukraine that we are going to attack Russians with biological weapons. That's not true. Another thing, Russians accuse us that we don't provide green humanitarian corridors from the occupied cities to give the people in an occupied Ukrainian city the possibility to leave the city. Well, that's not true. Ukrainians are asking Russians, are asking the world to give that corridors from Mariupol and from other cities, to give people of these cities a possibility to leave these cities. But Russians don't give it. They don't give us the possibility to take our people back. That's the thing. My relatives in smaller little cities which are close to Kyiv have tried for 1 week to get there to Kyiv, back to Kyiv, because they had no possibility. That city, it was Irpin. It was constantly bombed. It was constantly attacked. So people had no possibility to get out of that city to the safer place. And that's the fault of Russia. But Russians, they say that it's fault of Ukraine. It's our fault. That's not true. And about nuclear weapon, Ukraine never developed nuclear weapon. We gave away our nuclear weapon I think in 1996, something like that, because we are a peaceful country, and we always had a peaceful political direction. We are not a war country. We are not a military country. We are a peaceful country. Ukraine is a peaceful country. So we gave away our military weapon, but we had in Ukraine up to 1996, we had the world's second biggest nuclear arsenal. So we gave it away. We just gave it away because we're a peaceful country. Now Russians accuse us that before this war, they accused us that we were going to develop nuclear weapon to attack Russia. How could it be? How could anyone imagine this? That Ukraine is going to develop nuclear weapon to attack Russia? It's unimaginable. It's impossible. I don't know. It's totally nonsense. It's nonsense.
You think there's a peaceful solution to the war, or?
Yes, negotiations.
Okay.
Well, our delegations, Ukrainians, our official representatives, it was 3 rounds, as far as I know, 3 rounds of negotiations between our side and Russian side. Another round was in Turkey, when our foreign affairs minister came to discuss that situation with Russian foreign affairs minister Sergei Lavrov. So they discussed that, but it was no conclusion. It was no real solution to the situation. Nothing changed. So I see that these negotiations are not
very successful,
giving the necessary desired effect. Okay. Unfortunately.
How can foreigners like Canadians or from people from other countries help Ukraine? What is the best way to help?
Well, I think that your people, we're grateful to your people, to people of Canada, and because Canada has already done a lot of a lot of good and has already gave a lot of support to Ukraine, to our people. And I see that, the whole civilized world helps us. We see that people from all over the world are trying to help us. That's true. We see it and we appreciate it. It's like invaluable support. We see it. It's really important for us. I think that, the good thing is, I don't even know. I know that, for example, our government always, I think it's complicated. Well, I think mostly it's financial aid.
Yes.
Because our government always asks the European Union and the USA and other countries for some financial help. Because you see, we have a lot of financial issues now. Our infrastructure is being bombed every day, every hour. So roads, cities, are being constantly bombed, and we have really lost a lot. And that need to be repaired. Absolutely. And Ukrainian, this war is very expensive, and our army and our people are fighting. It's really need a lot of financial support. Yes, that's true. And our government have given official bank account of our National Bank of Ukraine, who takes all these contributions and sends to different needed areas where it's really needed. Yeah, so it's so all this aid is efficiently spread across our country. Yeah, I think that it's working. It's a good thing. Well, the second thing is, I think that you ordinary people, everyone has power to write petitions, to go for how do you call it? Meetings, no, not meetings. How do you call it? Well, to ask your government, because Canada is a strong country. It's a big, strong country, and Canada has its own impact on the politics in the world. I think that every country and all the people should go and ask their government to close the sky above Ukraine. Our president, Vladimir Zelensky, has been talking about this for the whole time of the world.
Yes.
Our ministers, our people, everyone is talking about this. It's really extremely important. It's very important measure, because most of the damage, I know that I'm repeating myself, but most of the damage that comes from Russia comes from the air.
From the air.
And the air is, air is, it's a sphere that we can't control, actually. Because we have systems to shut down Russian missiles. Yeah, it's true. They're working very good. It's true. Maybe you've heard the news when Russian missile was going just straight into my hospital, something like a week ago. But Ukrainian armed forces have managed to shut it down, that rocket. Could you imagine what have happened if that rocket bombed my hospital?
Yes.
Well,
it's a nonsense.
I can't imagine even that. I can't even imagine that. But Ukrainian armed forces have shut down that rocket, and that's the thing. But not every rocket, not every bomb, not every missile could be shut down,
stopped.
And that's the thing. Yes, and that's the thing. So we need to close the sky above Ukraine. That's the most important issue. That's the most important measure that the whole world could provide us. That's very important for us. Everyone is repeating it every day, but it's very important, and we're waiting for it, and we desperately need it.
We'll see what happens. Well, Dr. Honcharenko, many thanks to you.
Thank you, Jean-Pierre.
All our thoughts and prayers are with you at the moment, and I will certainly get back to you if you accept in the coming weeks to see how things go. And please go enjoy maybe your night, and please be safe, and I'll get back to you soon.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Alors, ceci conclut l'entretien que j'ai eu avec Dr Honcharenko, qui est chirurgien pédiatrique à Kyiv, en Ukraine. Je n'ai pas révélé d'autres informations personnelles à son sujet, à sa demande. J'espère que vous avez aimé cet épisode qui a été diffusé dans sa version intégrale anglaise. Et je vais faire en sorte de mettre en ligne également un épisode avec une forme de traduction pour permettre à tous les auditeurs d'apprécier le message dont nous a fait part Dr Honcharenko. En attendant, je vous souhaite une belle journée. Je vous invite à visiter le site web qui est www.baladosante.ca au baladosante.ca. Je vous invite à vous abonner au site web, à vous abonner au balado sur la plateforme de votre choix. J'apprécie recevoir des suggestions d'invités de votre part et comme toujours, je fais un appel aux commanditaires qui aimeraient s'associer à cette activité. En attendant, je suis Jean-Pierre Gagné et vous avez écouté La santé au-delà des mots. À bientôt.